What if a single day of revenge ended up destroying the life of an innocent girl who did absolutely nothing wrong? Imagine a king driven by a quest for justice, traveling hundreds of miles to return a bride price, only for his arrival to act like a spiritual bomb that detonates another wedding happening on the same street. The palace of Ile-Ife is currently mourning a tragedy that social media is only just beginning to understand. It's a story of a royal rejection, a family in disgrace, and a young bride who watched her future turn to ashes in just one afternoon. You need to stay until the very end, because what Queen Naomi did when she heard the news will leave you speechless. My crown gist friends and families, they say that when the wind of a king blows, it doesn't just move trees, it can uproot an entire forest. The news of the Ooni of Ife's visit to Ebira land has been trending for days, but nobody told you the real underground story of what happened on that fateful afternoon. Picture a beautiful morning in Ebira land. The sun was shining, and in one particular compound, there was joy. A young girl, the niece of Aunty Igbi, was preparing for her bride price ceremony. You know how it is in our culture. This is the day a woman's dignity is officially recognized. The food was cooking, the music was playing, and the family was dressed in their best traditional attire. They had no idea that a royal storm was coming to blow their happiness away. At the very same time, a royal convoy was moving. The Ooni of Ife, accompanied by his high chiefs and elders, was on a mission of finality. He wasn't there to celebrate. He was there to close a chapter. He was carrying the bride price of Aunty Igbi back to her people. My crown gist friends and families, in the history of the palace, returning a bride price is the ultimate sign of I am done with you. It is a public statement that the woman is no longer fit to be associated with the crown. Now imagine the coincidence, or perhaps it was a destiny. As the king's convoy arrived to deliver this message of rejection to Aunty Igbi's family house, the in-laws of her niece were already there, ready to pay for their own bride. The atmosphere changed in a heartbeat. The air became blow cold despite the sun. The groom's family looked up and saw the king of Ife. They saw the elders. They heard the proclamation. We have brought back the money. We are returning your daughter. The palace is finished with her. My crown gist friends and families, the shock was like a physical blow. The groom's father stood up, his eyes wide with fear. You see, in Africa, when you marry a woman, you are marrying her family, her history, and her reputation. When they saw the king himself returning a bride price to that same family, they didn't see it as an Aunty Igbi problem. They saw it as a family curse. The groom's family began to whisper, if the king can reject the aunt in such a public and disgraceful way, what kind of blood is in the niece? Is this a family of liars? Is this a family that the gods have rejected? Without a single fight, without a single shout, the groom's family stood up. They didn't even taste the food. They told the young girl's parents, we are sorry, but we cannot proceed. We cannot join our son's destiny to a house that the king of the land has just publicly disgraced. We are withdrawing our intentions. Can you imagine the pain? The young bride who knew nothing about the palace politics or Aunty Igbi's fake pregnancy games was left standing in her beautiful clothes while her future walked out the door. The joy of the morning turned to a funeral by afternoon. Aunty Igbi's quest for power had just claimed its first innocent victim. Back at the palace, news of this double calamity reached Queen Naomi. My crown gist friends and families, those who were there said the queen didn't say a word for a long time. Her heart was heavy for the girl. She knows what it means to be the center of palace talk, but she also knows the difference between being a victim
and being a villain. Queen Naomi reportedly wept. Not for Aunty Igbi, no. She wept for the innocent seed that was being choked by the thorns Aunty Igbi had planted. She sat in her chamber, her eyes filled with tears, realizing that the blowing effect of Aunty Igbi's lies had gone beyond the palace walls and into the lives of people who were just trying to live their lives in peace.
My Crownedest friends and families, as the groom's family began to pack their things and leave the ceremony, the compound became as quiet as a graveyard. The music stopped abruptly. The caterer stood with spoons mid-air, not knowing whether to serve the food or hide it. The young bride, Aunty Igbi's niece, was shivering. She wasn't shivering from cold, she was shivering from a shame she didn't buy with her own money. The groom, a young man who truly loved this girl, was caught between his heart and his heritage. My Crownedest friends and families, his father took him aside and whispered words that were sharper than a double-edged sword. He said, "Look at that royal convoy. Look at the elders of Ife. If a king can travel this distance to return money, it means the fire in that house is too hot for our son to play with. We are not marrying a girl, we are marrying a scandal." The groom tried to look at his bride one last time, but his family pushed him toward the car. In that moment, the blowing effect of Aunty Igbi's choices became permanent. A marriage that was built on years of friendship was dismantled in less than 30 minutes. Now, let's look at the king's side of this matter. Why did the Ooni choose that specific day? My Crownedest friends and families, some say it was a coincidence, but others in the palace whisper that it was divine timing. The king had reached his limits. He wanted to make a statement that was loud enough for the whole world to hear. The palace of Ife does not tolerate deceit. By returning that bride price, he was cutting the spiritual and traditional cords that bound Aunty Igbi to the throne. He was returning her to her roots, but those roots were already being poisoned by the shame she had created. When the king's messengers dropped the heavy bag of money, the untouched bride price, the elders of Aunty Igbi's family were speechless. They didn't want to collect it. Imagine the scene, my Crownedest friends and families. They were begging the king's representatives, "Please, don't do this today. We have another celebration going on. Don't dump this heavy load on us while we are trying to give out another daughter." But the palace elders were firm. They said the king's business does not wait for a commoner's party. The truth has no calendar. They dropped the money and walked away with the dignity of a lion. Back in the inner chambers of her own home, Aunty Igbi was reportedly in a state of total collapse. She didn't realize that her fake pregnancy script would end up destroying her own sister's home. She had been so focused on fighting for power inside the palace, trying to manipulate the king, that she forgot that her actions would ripple back to her village. Now, her own family members are looking at her like she is a plague. My Crownedest friends and families, the most painful part of this update is the reaction of the young bride's mother. She fell to her knees and started wailing. She wasn't crying because of the money. She was crying because she knew that in a small community, a rejected bride is a marked woman. Who will come for her now? Who will be bold enough to marry into a family that has been publicly refunded by the highest king in the land? As this was happening, Queen Naomi was informed of the total chaos in Ebira land. Those close to her say she didn't just feel pity, she felt a deep sense of responsibility. She knows that as a mother, as a queen, and as a woman of God, she cannot stay silent while an innocent girl's life is being blown away. My Crownedest friends and families, the atmosphere in the village became so heavy that even the birds stopped chirping. After the groom's family fled the scene, the elders of the community did not just go home to sleep, no. They called an emergency meeting under the great Iroko tree. The topic was simple. What do we do with a family that has been publicly rejected by the king? You see, my Crownedest friends and families, in our tradition, when a king returns a bride price, he isn't just returning money, he is returning baggage. The elders were terrified. They began to ask, if the Ooni of Ife says this woman is not fit for the palace, is her family fit for our community? My Crownedest friends and families, the discussion was brutal. Some elders suggested that the entire family should be isolated until a spiritual cleansing is done. Imagine the pain of the innocent niece sitting in her room, hearing that her own community is not afraid to touch her, all because of her aunt's greed for power. Now, let's talk about Aunty Igbi herself. For the first time since this fake pregnancy scandal started, the reality finally hit her. We heard from sources close to the house that she was seen pacing around, talking to herself. The billionaire dream has turned into a nightmare.
She tried to call her sister, the mother of the rejected bride, but her sister refused to pick up the phone. In fact, reports say the sister has cursed the day Aunty Igbi was born. This is no longer a palace war, this is a blood war. But my Crown Jade's friends and families, the most shocking part of this chapter is the secret letter. We gather that the groom's father, a man of high standing, sent a private message back to the palace elders. He wanted to explain why he broke his son's heart. In the letter, he allegedly wrote, "We do not fear the girl, but we fear the shadow that follows her. If we marry her, we are inviting the king's anger into our own home. We are a family of peace and we cannot walk into a fire that Aunty Igbi has set ablaze." When this message reached the palace, it reportedly moved Queen Naomi to tears again. She realized that the disgrace had become a brand. It was like a stamp on the forehead of every female member of that family. Queen Naomi, being the woman of God that she is, reportedly went into her private prayer closet. Those who are nearby said they heard her praying for the innocent seeds that are being crushed. Wait, it gets even deeper. My Crown G's friends and families, there is a rumor that the villagers are now demanding that Aunty Igbi should come home and perform a public apology, not just to the king, but to the girl whose life she has stalled. They are saying that until she confesses the full depth of her blown lies, the family will remain a no-go area for any suitor. Can you imagine the intensity? Aunty Igbi thought she was playing a game of chess with the crown, but she didn't realize that she was playing with the lives of her own people. The village elders are now firm. No marriage, no celebration, and no peace for the family until the palace is satisfied.
The finality of a king's word is like a mountain. It does not move and it does not bend. After the bride price was returned and the village ceremony was blown into pieces, the Ooni of Ife returned to his palace. But he did not return to celebrate a victory. He returned with a heavy heart, knowing that the sword of justice is always sharp on both sides. The king issued a final decree through the palace elders. He stated clearly that the return of the bride price was not just a financial transaction. It was a spiritual divorce from the deceit that Aunty Igbi had brought into the royal household. The decree was sent to the family elders in Ibria land, and it carried a weight that no one expected. The king requested that the family perform a total traditional cleansing of their lineage. He was essentially saying, until you purge the spirit of lies from your house, the crown will never recognize your name again. But while the palace was busy with decrees, the real tragedy was playing out in a small bedroom in the village. The young niece, the bride who never was, has reportedly gone into a state of total silence. My Crown G's friends and families, sources tell us she hasn't eaten for days. She has removed her wedding jewelry and locked herself away. The blowing effect of her aunt's ambition has stolen her voice. She is the living proof that when elders eat sour grapes, the children's teeth are set on edge. And what about Aunty Igbi? Information reaching Crown Gist suggests that she is currently a woman without a home. The palace has rejected her, and now her own family in the village has told her not to return yet. They blame her for the poison that has entered their family tree. She tried to reach out to the groom's family one last time to beg for her niece, but they blocked every channel of communication. They told her, "We don't talk to families that the king has publicly shamed." My Crown Gist friends and families, the most beautiful yet painful part of this conclusion is Queen Naomi's final move. In a world full of eye for an eye, the queen chose grace. We heard that she sent a special gift, not to Aunty Igbi, but to the rejected bride. It was a gift accompanied by a note that read, "The mistakes of your house do not define the beauty of your soul. Stand tall, for your crown is coming from a higher king." This gesture has divided the public. Some said Queen Naomi is too kind, while others say this is the mark of a true queen of hearts. As for Aunty Igbi, her name has become a cautionary tale in the streets of Nigeria, a warning to every woman who thinks she can use fake scripts to climb the real ladder. You might get to the top, but the fall will not only break your bones, it will break the heart of everyone who shares your name. As we speak, the village elders are preparing for the cleansing ceremony. The billionaire dreams are gone, the palace cards are gone, the relevance is gone. All that is left is the cold, hard truth. Lies have a short lifespan, but the consequences last a lifetime. My Crown J's friends and families, this is where we drop the curtain on this story for now.
It is a tragedy that didn't have to happen. A blowing disaster created by one woman's greed. What is your final take on this? Do you think the groom's family was right to run away, or should they have stood by the innocent girl? And what should be the final punishment for Aunty Igbi for causing this much pain? Drop your comments. I want to read every single one. Before I sign off, please remember that all the information and details we have shared throughout these 4 parts are based on training social media rumors and alleged reports circulating online. None of this information should be taken as confirmed fact or official palace news yet, as they remain unfiltered social media gist.